Welcome back, everybody. We are back with another Game of Thrones show. It's another Monday, which means we're here to talk Game of Thrones. And as always, to talk Game of Thrones with me is the beautiful Roy.
Oh,
Welcome, Roy.
Thank you, Mo. That made me feel nice about myself.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm glad. I'm glad I could do that for you right now. So, but no, good looking guy over there. We get to talk Game of Thrones. That's why I like doing the shows because, hey, but no. R.I.P. King Viserys.
Spoilers, but yes.
Yes, we're gonna start off. I mean, it is Monday.
I mean, everyone's watching it,
and it's also Monday 8:30 EST, I believe. So
close to 24 hours to when I started watching the episode.
Right. I will give my Pacific. Sorry, not Pacific. Just I'll give my West Coast people some time. But yeah, you should have watched it. Anyways, we are going to be spoiling, so sorry about that. But R.I.P. King Viserys. And holy shit, visuals. Viserys's
disease.
VFX.
Yeah, that was well done and gross. Like
it was pretty gross, especially. But you know what? I will say this though. I'm gonna start from the end of the show, obviously, just to make this point. Even though his last thing he saw before he died was his family seemingly, I'm gonna say it like that, seemingly looking good together. So he did see that, and I'm pretty sure he died at peace, feeling that he at least, brought them together.
Mm-hmm.
Through all the
I mean, I think like a lot of big things happen in this episode when it comes to Viserys' character, and I think the tragedy of his character, and sort of like what his arc is.
Mm-hmm.
So I found the performance and the writing for the character of Viserys to be really strong in this episode.
Yes. I mean, I feel like that was his strongest. The strongest. I mean, but honestly, I feel like this is something I've been saying, that King Viserys, or the character, has been improving week to week. He started off really weak, and every episode, not just like the character itself, the actor, or the material rather, has been getting stronger for the character. So we're understanding more of his personality, and I think this episode, even though this is the last episode we're going to see him in, we actually get to see his full personality, and I feel like this is the first time he put bass in his voice.
Yeah, well, I mean, like he was sort of, I think it continues the through line, right, that they established in the episode where Rhaenyra, has her whatever encounter with
some flies.
Hey, no, I just finished eating some ice cream, my friend, or vegan ice cream that I had delivered from Ben and Jerry's. That is how depressed I am today. All right. So besides that, Rhaenyra's point. All right. So Rhaenyra, right, and Viserys committed to her as his heir in that episode at the end of the Daemon sex episode, and the through line here is that he's committed to it, and the sort of his last action, right, as a conscious human being.
No. Let's leave that. Let's leave that point to come back to it later.
Okay, because I mean, I just think it's central to those last moments. And if we're talking about the very last moment, I actually didn't like that they gave Alicent an out. That she could have thought what, Aegon,
why she would.
Yeah, that so that Viserys was basically confirming he thought he was talking to Rhaenyra and was confirming their conversation and confirming her as his heir. Mm-hmm. And Alicent, of course, takes out the thing about Aegon, and
that's it. All she takes is, yeah.
And I don't like that as an out for her. It was probably I think the weakest piece of writing in the show.
I will say this though. I mean, she is religious now. She's uber religious, and so prophecy. You're right. It does give her an out, but she will take a prophecy all the way through.
Well, I don't even think it's the prophecy thing, right? So she can say to her, she can go to sleep at night saying, Viserys said at the end of his life, his final moments, he blinked and didn't want Rhaenyra to be his heir, right? That's not bullshit.
Yeah, it does give her an out. You're right.
And I didn't appreciate. I thought that the show did a good job of sort of like establishing the Greens as like, this is like what we are going to do, and and they sort of gave Allison this additional sort of like prop that sort of I think makes the choice easier. That I think takes some of the dramatic tension out of that final choice that I assume she's going to make in the next episode of, going full green. Here, that to me, that scene took a lot of the emotion out of where Allison's character's been heading since the wedding episode.
I'm kind of going to disagree with you a little bit. Not fully, because I understand the point that you're making. It really does undercut like the tension between the two of them. But I think this episode did that in its own way outside of that, because with the whole thing with Viserys dying and Allison and Rhaenyra, it looked like they were going to talk. Mm-hmm. It looked like they were looking at each other like, damn, why are we really fighting? Mm-hmm. At the dinner scene. So there was if that didn't happen, I feel like they would have dragged out the reasoning, because now you have these two women who look like, you know what, we could fix this. We could be the matriarchs and fix this ourselves. But they, again, especially when she was like, yeah, maybe we should leave after the dinner, right? Maybe we should, I think we're going to leave. And Allison is like, no, Allison was like, no, you just got here. And she grabbed her. Like, it was almost like
yeah.
The show was in its own self blinking and saying, can they fix this? I haven't read anything. And I was looking at that like, you know what? If I'm watching this show, like, and all the way through the end, I'm like, all people need to do is really just sit there and have a conversation. If everyone on this table sat and had a conversation, they could fix the next 1,000 years. And we wouldn't have to. Right. Oh, he's, as you so eloquently said last week, school shooter. And he further confirms it that he's a dickhead in this episode. But going back, how the episode opens, we're in Driftmark.
Got it.
Yes. Oh man, I always say Driftwood. We're in Driftmark.
It's the throne, not the place.
Right. And okay, Avon, right?
Are we talking about the sea snake's brother? Is Vaemon?
Yeah, Vaemon. Oh my god, it's every name is a play on, and every, like, it's annoying. So Vaemon is really like, it's talking to Rhaenyra and
Rhaenyra, right?
Rhaenyra
and Baela, right? That's the twin that's there.
Yeah. He's talking to the the lady of Driftwood, and he's like, a Driftmark, and he's like, hey, look, technically I'm the last living male heir, which, I mean, he's not wrong.
It is true.
Right. And seeing as those kids, even though those kids are Rhaenyra's, they're not linked to us by any blood. So I'm coming to take what's rightfully mine, and I'm going to advance my. I feel like it was 100% for advancement. It wasn't for the family. Like, fuck the family name. I feel like he's always felt like this was his.
Yeah. That's the impression you get in the when they fight in the war.
Yeah,
he's like let's just abandon this kind of thing, right?
Right. Just go back home and we'll be fine. And it looking at how, or the way he was playing with the hand, I feel like what's the name? The hand of the king has always had, Otto has always had Vaemon, right? Vaemon's. I feel like he's always had his ear. I feel like they've always been, in the background hatching plots and whatnot. But we find out that Corlys is seriously injured, maybe going to die. It's kind of sad that the only other dark-skinned black actor, I have to make that distinction, is out of here.
Go ahead. I wouldn't shed any tears too soon for the sea snake, my friend. Like,
oh, come on. Okay. Oh, you mean because he's a jerk?
No, because come on, man. Do you think he's dead? Like,
there's no body, so obviously no.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, there's no body, so it's obvious. But But so he comes to. So this episode pretty much is about him. Is about drawing like further lines in the sand, right?
Yeah.
If Vaemon and the crown, if the crown approves Vaemon's petition, he becomes, he owes the crown, and he not only do they have the biggest dragon, they also have the biggest navy, or the, would I say biggest? Yeah, biggest navy, right?
Yeah, they have the biggest navy, particularly the biggest navy that like. So if you like know anything about Westeros's sort of geography, Driftwood and Driftmark is between Dragonstone, where Rhaenyra is, and King's Landing. So not only would they have the biggest fleet, they would essentially be cutting
the ports, control, food, and all of that. Okay.
Yeah, from where she is, and really make it just really impossible for her to be able to really marshal anything, right? She'll be locked out in sea. Air will not be safe for her because they have one of the most strong, the strongest dragon.
Right.
So it would be sort of the ultimate coup that could basically just put the black cause entirely in the toilet.
Towards their favor. In the toilet. So that, I feel like that's what's happening here. I mean, obviously, I don't feel like that's what's happening here because you hear Otto in the council say, "Hey, listen. What at the end of the day, who do you want to control these seas? Do you want a boy?" And we know what he's saying, right? He's trying to be coded, but we know what he's saying. He's really saying like, if you give it to Rhaenyra, or if you give it to Luke.
Yeah,
if you give it to Luke,
I think it's the full.
Yeah, Lucerys. If you give it to Luke, you're essentially strengthening Rhaenyra, right? And you're probably going to seal us the same same point you made if it went the other way. But if we give it to this guy, he will forever owe us, and all whatever we ask him to do, he will probably do it. So that's what I took from that conversation. That he was, do you want to give it to a boy? Do you want to give it to a well-trained? Fuck that. I know what you're saying, Otto. You're not that smart.
Well, I think also the unstated thing until it's stated at the end, right, is if they pick Vaemon over Lucerys, it's basically saying Lucerys is a bastard, right? Like,
correct. You're confirming. Yes. You're also confirming all the other things.
Because Lenore and the Sea Snakes, like, stated intentions was Lucerys to become Lord of Driftmark, right?
Yes.
So both his claimed father and his claimed grandfather both are like
grandsire,
right? Grandsire, sorry. Wanted him, right? Like, which I think in some of the emotional language here, that's kind of weird for Rhaenyra. Like, I never entirely like get her hostility towards like Rhaenyra's children. To Rhaenyra, like maybe once her son dies, but specifically the children, because like her son claimed them, like, and acted as something as their father, and like she knew he was gay, right? Like,
correct.
It's not like they didn't like that she like cuckolded him in some sort of like she can't, because like the dude just
he wasn't going to do it with her. He wasn't going to do it with her. Yes.
And he then like acted as their father. So like I don't quite get why they cast her in this. Like, I get her wanting her like biological grandchildren, like granddaughters, to have more like say, but her like hostility to them kind of always rang kind of hollow to me. Like, kind of, because if she loves her son so much, like, why would you not give the same respect to these people that may not be his biological children, but like he was their father for most of their life?
I didn't get that either. So she was also there to like further her cause and claim her stakes, right? Sit on the throne. That way she can pass it to her granddaughters and whatnot. Rhaenyra said, "Hey, we could just..." Again, you know what's funny about Rhaenyra proposing what she proposed to her is that is exactly what you said Rhaenyra Alicent should have done. Right. Just do that and nobody's upset. And it's funny because it came, I don't know if because you read it and you're like, this happened once. It's just something that, okay. Because I was like, wow, Roy said this, but not to them, to someone else. So I watched that and I was like, okay, but I mean, it works either way because when I think the best scene on the show is when the farce of the petition start. Viserys does his. I'm sorry, Vaemon does his thing, eloquent, chest all puffed, and here comes Rhaenyra trying to set her petition for her son, and we already know like I feel like we knew where they were leaning to, right? Everyone kind of knew where because who was sitting on the throne? The hand, right?
It was Otto. Otto was.
Whew, disrespectful. We already knew where Otto was going to go, and the doors open, and here comes this broken husk of a king, just like nah. And I think this is. I would say this before we get to the scene when Rhaenyra is talking to her father and is like, "Yo, like you really set me up, and you told me this is my destiny, like, and you told me you were always going to support, like, show me, like, show it to me, like, let me see that support. Like, you're not just going to talk about it, be about it, right?" And this is what I thought about when that scene happened. I was like, this is the full um um character growth for Renee, because you had mentioned what a couple episodes ago. I think it was the hunting episode where you said, "Oh, they just made Renera." It kind of brought her character back. Was the episode of the following one? She's just
the
an angry
following one.
Yeah, it was you. You called her a petulant. You didn't use that word, but that's what I thought. That's how I thought about it. You called her a teenager, a petulant teenager, and so I'm watching this her talking to her father like this is something that I wanted, but I don't know if now I'm thinking about it, maybe I shouldn't have wanted it. And I'm like, this is growth. This is and I think them doing that, yes, it may have hampered like the growth of the show, but the growth of the character is very evident.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that also this episode was, I think, Emma D'Arcy, I believe that is the name of the person who plays Rhaenyra, was really strong in this episode.
I for the first time, yes, I like adult Rhaenyra now. Like, not as much as I like 10 and 5 Rhaenyra, 5 and 10 Rhaenyra, but I really like adult Rhaenyra, but I now hate adult Allison.
I think I mean we'll see. Well, I like adult. I don't know if it sounds like adult Allison, but I think where they've taken adult Allison
right
is like a natural continuation of where the character was left off when they did the switch. Mm-hmm. So I think of all the characters on the show, I think Allison is the most consistently characterized. Correct, and has shown the most like overall growth. And the growth could sometimes be slow, but she's as a character has never felt like she's spinning her wheels. Like one of my biggest problems with Rhaenyra's storyline, particularly when she was like a teenager, was that her storyline felt like it was like stuck in, which is could be realistic, but fiction's not realistic. This is about
right.
This isn't like Breaking Bad.
There's dragons here, bro.
Right? Yeah, there's dragons. Right? Like it never felt like it was moving forward. It was just like, oh yeah, to use your word, petulant teenager, and then that one episode where she tells Kristen Cole, like, no, I'm not going to run away with you. I'm going to be queen. Like, you're going to be my, like, fuck boy, but I'm going to be queen. Like, that's where it's like, oh, okay. They've, like, crystallized where they want to take with her. And since then, I think the character growth has been really consistent. And I did like the, like, her doubting herself in this moment when she felt like her father was failing her, right? That this was...
Correct.
Because, like, the blood was on the wall. Like, if Otto and Alicent had basically... semi-publicly said that Viserys is not, is a strong child. Like that's just over for them, and
it's done. It's clipped. I think they take the dragons from them.
Oh, you can't do that though.
I mean, you can't, but I think they would try. They would find a way. It would be something. But Viserys comes in and saves his daughter again, and this time for good. And I was like, okay, Viserys he really put some bass in his voice because he comes down after Vaemon steps up and goes, well, your daughter is a whore. And, okay. This is a problem. I know I shouldn't have this because it's fiction, but I should. But then there's some realism into this, right? I shouldn't have this problem, but I had this problem. My thing was, Vaemon, you know your nephew. You know how did you expect this woman? Like, did you want her to sleep with you? Like, is this to produce Valerian heir? Is that what would you have like? Would you have preferred that? Because if you wanted, you could have just asked for her hand instead, right? You could have just done that to save everybody the drama. But no, you're being selfish. I know Vaemon is supposed to be like this truthful guy because again, at the Stepstones, he was like, "Look, we're not winning. Let's, this was a stupid war. We came in. We don't have them. We're not winning. Let's dip." That's the truth. That was the truth because at the point they were not winning, and if you went away, you weren't necessarily losing, but it's Vietnam, right? That's what
until it wasn't until whatever that was that
action
scene.
action Damon, right?
Yeah,
and so like, but that was the truth. Again, and the truth sometimes, well, in situations like this, is not always good. It's not always good, right? Because you get hurt, sometimes unalived.
quite literally.
Yes. And he goes, and so I'm like, how like everyone who is mad at her, right, is really only mad because she gets what she wants. She's gonna become queen. Her children are her son is gonna become king. And the only reason, because what's his name? Lucian? No.
Which one? Jace is the oldest.
No, her husband. Her husband.
Oh,
husband.
oh my God.
Lenor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Lenor being gay was like a secret.
Definitely not to his family.
Right. So like, why were they like, again, the same reason why, but I guess again, someone that wants to tell the truth, then come on and so don't just tell one side of the story. Tell all of it then. If you think like you're this honor, why does the woman, and this is the point I was trying to make, why does the woman get to have all the shame, right? And the gay guy or the undercover husband not get any? Like he gets to, but I guess his shame is, oh, your wife cucked you, and
not that you cared, right? Like
he has no shame. So I was really offended when he did that, and I like when Damon took his head off, but I don't. I think the show is trying to save Damon, but I don't want them to. He's a jerk. He's a groomer. He's all of
Damon at home is what this was. This episode was. It's domestic Damon.
Right. Stop trying to like make him a hero, because they did it twice in that one scene. They did it twice, right? When Viserys was like, "I'm fine," and he goes to grab him, and he goes, "I'm fine," and then he looks over and it's Viserys and and Damon. And he's like, oh, "You know what, brother?"
Well, like that. I didn't see that as like trying to redeem Damon. I think it was coming back to this like. I actually don't think they did a very good job of this in the show most of the time, but like they'll kind of like love, not even like love and tension of their brotherhood, right? Like where like the best acting Matt Smith did was that scene with Rhaenyra when like he's like looking at Viserys and he's just like, "Is this my brother?" Like in this like, what has happened to my brother? I think that scene was less like, I think, making Damon look less like a dick and more like about that relationship. Do you know what I mean? Which is separated from Damon being a gigantic piece of shit, right? Which he kind of is in, because he's kind of a troll, right? That's kind of what Damon is.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
And you see that when he's like kind of like looks at Aemond at the end of it, he's like, okay, like I see you, like.
I know. I see you. I'm gonna get you. It was kind of crazy. But Aemon's look when he took Vaemon's head off, right? In that scene. So Viserys pulls out this little blade, like, say it again and I'm gonna take your tongue. And I'm like, what are you gonna do?
Well, the Kingsguard's gonna do it for him. So
right. But it wasn't, which is what I'm saying. They tried to redeem Daemon and make it look like a bro, like, oh my God, bro. I mean, you're right. It was that.
Well, I think they really like. I think they really are also. Yes, he did have. He has like a love tension with his brother, right? Like, and they always come back to that, which you don't always get from Viserys. Like one of the things I do think is missing from the book is kind of a little bit of their like back and forth of like Daemon in exile, Daemon coming back, Daemon in exile, Daemon coming back, which is present in the show, but like a little less
but
developed.
It's not as
I think you're supposed to get the impression that Daemon actually really like loves Rhaenyra or has like real affection for her, and that's what I more thought when he chopped the guy's head off. Like it was more like
it was more so for Rhaenyra and not necessarily for okay.
Because the King's Guard was going to rip his tongue out, like if that's what the king wanted, right? Like,
correct.
I think Daemon was just like, "Fuck you!" Like I'm gonna like you threaten my family here, and
so it's not, okay. So it's not just it wasn't. You're saying it wasn't more so for his brother, but it was more so for Rhaenyra.
Yeah, next week is gonna be sweet.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. So let's get to the supper where he's like, yeah.
I mean that's completely fair.
That's a point. Let's get to the supper. I like that scene. But this is what I really liked about it, right? The toasts. I think.
Well, wait. Are we gonna skip? We can't skip the Aegon characterization here, can we? Like
no. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, like Aegon, like just straight up like raping that woman. That was a fucking messed up sequence. Like
this is what I hate.
That was just wow. They went there.
Wait, did they show it?
They didn't show. Yeah, they didn't need to show it, which was good.
They didn't show it. Yeah,
but like emotionally, they went there.
Oh,
like,
it was there. The girl, crying because she's not just crying because that happened to her. She is terrified. Yes. She is scared because you have to tell the queen, and the queen is like, "Wait." She's like, "I'm not gonna tell anyone." And Alicent, cold as hell. I'm scared for the girl. I'm like, Alicent is gonna give her something.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like Cersei with Qyburn and be like, take him away.
I'm like, she's not making it out of King's Landing. When she went in a hug, I'm like, she's gonna smell. I'm like, I'm thinking every possible thing I can think of. And because this is why I'm thinking it. Alicent was cold when she said, "You're not gonna tell anyone, huh?" Well, you told Eric, and then you told the other handmaid, and now you told me. Are you sure about that? I'm like, I wanted to piss my pants. I'm like, yo,
I thought Larys was gonna show up. Yeah.
See, I'm like, she's gonna kill her. But Alicent, this also shows like, because I'm like, yo, I'm not really like, I feel like Alicent is becoming a villain, but I feel like they said not really, right? When they because Cersei would 100% murk you. Alicent
would have super murked you. Like,
As bad as you think Alicent is becoming, she's not Cersei.
I mean, certainly.
Again, but in this, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mo.
No, I was saying in this climate, this is not information you want out there. You understand? This is not So the fact that this is another thing, right? Alice also isn't her dad. Because if this went to Otto, that girl's dead.
Yeah,
I 100% believe if this went to Otto, it would have never made it to the queen. She would have never heard about it.
I think that's probably the case. I think also like it continues the theme. Yeah, I agree, Marco. Like the actress who played the victim here was that was honestly the most intense scene that the show has done in a long while.
Yes.
Like it was up there with like the birth scene in the first episode and the confrontation between Rhaenyra and Alicent in the last episode. Right. Like it was like legitimately intense, and this was just Alicent actress sold it, and so did the woman who played the victim. Mm-hmm. I think, but we need to also go to the Aegon scene. Also, I think hammered home one of the themes, right? Like, well, one of the things is Alicent is a terrible mother. Like that's number one.
Correct. Yes.
Number two is like the ways in which this like patriarchal dream that Otto pushed on Alicent has turned like everything in her life to ash. I think is I mean that's completely fair. about Cersei versus Alicent. And I think it really hammers home that theme about Alicent, right? Is that her father like made this decision for her, and her loving her father forced her to embrace this patriarchal dream of, you know, this high tower prince becoming king. And it's just completely toxic for everything in her life. And and like just poisons everything. And I think that scene with Aegon really hammered that home. Also, Aegon's a piece of shit. Let's well, like much bigger piece of shit than he seemed in any of the previous episodes.
Right, and thank God you bring Aegon up, because I think this is the perfect transition to this toast. So we're going around the table giving toast. Obviously, Rhaenyra started like, you know, the peaceful toast, and Aegon's wife. And she goes, "Congratulations to, you know, the Baelor and I forget the other, Lenora,
Rhaenyra, no, right?
Rhaenyra.
No, I think it's Rhaena. Baelor and Rhaena.
Yeah. So congratulations, Baelor and Rhaena, on your, you know, on you guys getting married. So something I have to say about marriage, it's not that bad. Oh, the shade was so amazing. But I don't even think it was shade, right?
Well, because she is like portrayed as kind of like sweet, right? Like fundamentally sweet, and like I mean, Aegon versus Daemon, yeah, that could be a heck of a fight. I mean, I get the impression that that Aegon is not going to be the big fighter. That it's probably going to be Aemon.
No, it's not. It's definitely not going to be Aegon. But yeah, she is sweet and a little naive, and I don't think it was a shade. It came out and it sounded shady, but I think fundamentally it wasn't supposed to be that. I think she was like, you know, this is my experience, and hopefully, you know, it's just something she just thought really sweet, right? But loved it because, again, Aegon was being a piece of shit the whole dinner.
Oh yeah,
with everything he was saying, and to Jace and Luke and their future.
Well, particularly to Jace and whichever of the twins.
He was getting married. Yeah, I was like, you know what, this is shade for you, eat it. And so in during the dinner, Viserys asked for music. Everything, you know, everything seems peaceful. Like he has finally in his mind, like, this is all I wanted, just everyone just being in, you know, just friendly and love and all of this. And he leaves, and I know Aemon was waiting. Like he was,
the whole episode he was waiting.
He was waiting for his perfect opportunity, and he goes.
Got sister wife, yeah. I mean, I also appreciated, before we get into what Aemon said, I appreciated Jace's like passive aggressive, like, you're a piece of shit. So I'm gonna ask who doesn't give a shit about his wife. So I'm gonna be nice to your wife, how she's having fun and
dance with her.
And then Aegon's like,
oh my god,
he's like, this is like, fuck. Like I was talking so much shit. My mouth was writing checks that I can't cash.
Right, yeah. I thought I had it. And then before we get to Aemon's toast, I forgot to talk. There were two things I wanted to talk about: Aemon's training and the meeting or the scene with Rhaenyra and the Maester. Is that a Maester?
Yeah, the Maester where Vaemond is like laid out dead.
Yeah. And she was like, I've seen you guys more in the last, like, I felt bad for her.
I felt bad for her too. Yeah. I wondered like what I think she was feeling guilty about, like the fact that he died, because she kind of sold him out.
I think it was more so like, I want to bury the hatchet.
Yeah, I felt it was legitimate, right? Because I felt actually like her apology was more like thoroughgoing than Alicent's was, right?
Yes.
Like, and I'm not like shading Alicent. I think it was really clear that like Alicent was like into the idea of reconciliation there. Yeah, Rhaenyra's kids are much more diplomatic.
Because
I like Luke and Jace.
Yeah, they're actually learning to be like royalty, and the other one is just learning to be a fighter, and the other one is a piece of shit. Like, if we're being honest, like married to a sister, like,
And who he's mean to, like,
right? Doesn't talk to her, doesn't do nothing with her, and it's just like, oh, because then she goes, unless when he's drunk. I'm like, how much more shade can this sweet girl drop on this? Like, how much more covering? Like, is there room for any covering? She was building an awning. Okay, she was building a deck awning with the shade she was dropping.
she got him.
She
But,
did, and then she danced with the guy he was being a jerk to. She pretty much cucked him in the party. It was amazing. It was fucking amazing.
It was great. Like, but I think Allison and Rhaenyra were both pretty legitimate, like in their like reconciliational moments that they like had there, right? And I think that like Jace being willing to play along, like I guess it shows that I think at least from the black side of things, there's like a willingness to like meet them halfway that I think Allison and I think was like willing to accept that hand that was offered there, right? I think that's like because she seemed legitimately angry when Aemon like makes his play.
Yeah. So the training Aemon and fuckboy Cole, I hate him. The worst character ever. But yeah, so like you said, Aemon is definitely going to be Aemon and Daemon. That's a mouthful. It's going to be
Aemon and Daemon.
Aemon and Daemon. That's definitely the fight that we're going to see in the future or moving forward. I don't know, maybe not next week, but like in the future. But yeah, I also have a theory when we met Rhaenyra's twins. I have a theory. Everybody dies except those two kids. And that's how
Oh, you mean the two kids? They're not twins. They're like a year and a half.
A year, okay. So
like one is one's a toddler and one is still like relatively like young. Babyish. Like what but yeah, they were like 2 years apart, I think.
Okay. But everybody dies except for the two kids.
Aegon and Viserys.
Yes. And that's how so the line is gonna come from Aegon and Viserys.
Well, we'll have to see in 4 or 5 seasons.
For a fact.
I'm gonna have to see in 4 or 5 seasons.
I feel like I've changed my theory 3 times this season.
I'm sure you'll change it a lot more, and I am and
you're gonna sit there and enjoy it.
Trying to not give any spoilers.
By the way, he's read the books. But so if you have any questions, shoot them through. Ask and he will probably.
Hey, look! Not only have I read the books, I pre-ordered the new stupid world fucking book George R. R. Martin has coming out in a couple of weeks. So
yeah, let me see. But no, oh man, I'm never gonna give him that.
I'm not either.
Never gonna give him that. If you don't, there's so many things you can do. That is not one thing I'm gonna give him. But no,
co-signed.
Right. Okay, so we get to his let's talk about Aemon's play, right? Where he pretty much again he sent himself what he did with the dragon and the fight, he's pretty much showing who he is. But I will say this though, I know that kid they cast to play adult Aemon and he's gonna die. That's like in everything he's done, he's died. So that's how I know.
Aemon?
Yeah, I promise you. Every time I've seen him, he's dead. Or he comes.
I don't recognize him from anything. So
he's a red shirt. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I mean, Aemon is an important character. That is the most spoiler I will say.
Importantly, to die. I don't know. That didn't even make sense. But
yeah, that was a bad one, Mel. You got to workshop that one. Let's workshop that one for next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think his like strong bastard's insult, which is what we've been playing.
Was horrible.
It was very horrible. Like, so did you catch something that like did Lucerys like egg him on? Like that was something that I was slightly confused about, what that exchange between the two of them right before he got up to give his speech, where he like kind of looks at Lucerys and then like Lucerys gives him like some kind of look back. I couldn't quite interpret what that meant. I wonder if you had a
No,
theory.
I think Lucerys was pointing.
I mean that
that is it. No, actually, I'm looking at spelling.
They are
that is really the D
anagrams, right? Or is that
right,
when you mix
right.
it up? Anagrams.
Mm-hmm. Just transpose the D. You know what? Never mind.
Let's just not do it. We're both gonna get lost.
Yeah. I think it was one of the I think it was more so like I look like, yeah, you know what I did to you the last time, I'll do it again. I think that's what it was.
Personally, you think that was what it was? Okay. I mean, I can see that as a reading.
Fuck your eye. Like, you know, it's like remember that, you know. And so he felt like he had to do it at that point. I just think it was one of those things. I don't say he definitely felt like, yeah, I gotta do it now. I have to. You're not gonna play with my eye. I would definitely talk.
Now you get this small child isn't going to get to play with me.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to talk about your parentage or lack of, bastard. That's the second time in the episode. And yes, you're right. Allison was 100% angry, and she was hurt that Rhaenyra wanted to leave. We just got here, you know. And I feel like again, a lot of this episode could be solved if people just had conversations, just talk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about this as like a theme, and like I think the real villain of the show is like Otto, right? Like to me, that's and now Aemon being like school shooter boy. They're the two like big villains.
Targaryens, the Greens have all the villains. Honestly, I mean, even though Daemon,
Daemon is the big villain. Of the
Daemon is a villain, but like Aemon, Otto, and his Aegon. Well, that Aegon on that side,
right? The Aegon the older. Yeah, I mean, Aegon the older hasn't been he was like a useless piece of shit in the previous episode. Now he's just like a rapist piece of shit in this one. So like we can add him to the villain roster.
He also beat his meat on the leg.
I still don't understand what that is. Like I still don't understand that scene.
Sploosh on somebody's head. I'm crying.
Hey, look, you got King Sploosh. Someone could bottle that and sell it up, right? You know, look, they believed in the Middle Ages in the healing power of kings. So I imagine the healing power of dragging king's sperm. I don't know. Anyway, Aegon is a new like villain.
Yes, he's a new villain. Yeah.
And then, but Otto and Aemon are the super villains, right?
The super villains, yes, definitely Otto, because you can see Otto's machinations this episode. He was not gun shy at all. He was,
and he consistently refuses to take the off ramp, right? Like, there's so many different off ramps that could have like solved this problem.
Yeah,
and he's constantly cutting Allison off from them, right? Which I think is like a really interesting, like, and powerful like way of this, right? Like where he's constantly setting Allison up to like, no, you can't get off off the high tower claimant train. Like you just can't get off, even though she's like, oh no, wait, there's a station right there. There's a station right there. And this was the biggest episode. And now that you sort of have these two sort of men in Allison's life, her, you know, son who wants revenge and her father who wants to put Aegon on the throne. Like I just think Alicent is trapped. And then, of course, the end of the episode gives her.
She's not trapped anymore. She's the end of the episode. So at the end of the episode, there you go.
I mean, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Let me pin that.
But as someone pointed out, you know, that is the same window. It's an infamous window in the Red Keep.
Right. Right.
If you know your Game of Thrones.
Go ahead.
No, I just think that the overall like tone of this episode was very successful.
I get your point now with the Allison thing. I think we had to go around because I started there. We had to go around to come back to that. You just because you're right, she was trapped. Amon and her dad, and the fact that her dad won't let her just because again, it looked like at the before we get to the end, he was going to probably talk to her friend and say, "Look, we were friends. We're like sisters, bro. All we gotta do is talk about it, and we will probably what is so difficult for like that we can't get over what's going on right now." And they will probably have a conversation. And hey, I will take your kids in. Are you scared about you? I feel like that would have all come out, but then we get to the end, and it's like, or she would have found a way to
Well,
strengthen her cause. Her dad would have like. I feel like her dad should have continued to be the villain and continue to push her. Right? Is that where you feel like this should have gone?
yeah, I mean, like, there's so many offs, like, points where it could have been like when they were teenagers. Rhaenyra like didn't want to get married, right? So she
Right.
could have not gotten married, and then Allison's kids could have been the heir. She could once Rhaenyra started to have children, they could have betrothed them to each other. Like, there's lots of
Correct.
different like options that they could have had. Otto's thing of she'll kill your children if you don't
Hmm.
do what I say is like a smokescreen for what he wants, right? Like, there's no reason why Alicent's children would necessarily be vulnerable when there's a variety of
Right.
different sort of political steps that they could take to make sure that she wouldn't, right? And I think that's something also that when like the one of the things I about Allison's sort of little speech there is that she like has more sympathy, I think, now for Rhaenyra, like as a mother in this episode.
Yeah, we're both mothers, and yeah,
And also like where her
especially with. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go
No, I'm
ahead.
saying, especially with what she had to do for her son, or how she had to do what she did for her son, so she gets to see it now. And I feel like it was kind of opening a window to what her husband, King Viserys, did when it came to Rhaenyra. Like, you love your child, you will shield them. You go to bat for them, and it's pretty much again that's when all of that was happening. I'm like, okay, so maybe she's understanding more of it now, right? I didn't mean to cut you off. So go ahead with your
No,
point.
that's okay. I was just gonna say that because Lucerys was, and both of her children were like in real risk in this episode, in a way they weren't really in the previous one. Like, it was Aemond that was like in risk, and like her anger boiled over and all that other stuff. But I think
Right.
like Alicent was able to see a little bit more like the other side of this, which is yes, not only are my children at risk if this thing goes sideways, so are Rhaenyra's, and so
Hmm.
the two of like they could come together as like both of our children are at risk here. We need to come up with a solution to this problem. And that's sort of what Alicent is asking of her in at the end of the second to last scene of the episode.
Right. Right. And then she goes to talk to don't drink. I think the lesson of this episode is don't drink milk of the poppy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of interested. Like, ooh, what kind of it's probably just liquor. It's probably just liquor. It's nothing interesting. It's just like milk, liquor, Irish cream. I'm sorry.
Don't drink.
But yeah, don't drink milk of the poppy and talk to people. But he gives her an out. Aegon is the
By
prince.
accident.
Yeah, but definitely. But he gives it to her, and now she's going to solidify her. Like, okay, I'm not moving because the king said before he died. So I'm very interested in seeing what happens next week, even after the little trailer we got, because that trailer almost didn't give a lot, but
It
gave us
purposely didn't.
yeah. So I'm definitely looking forward to next week's episode, and
It's stuff hits the fan, I will
yeah,
say. I mean,
yeah.
based on like the material of them adapting the book is it's some heavy
So
stuff. So
so where are we now?
I mean, whether or
How
not there's
far?
going to be a civil war. I mean,
Oh,
if we is like we're
well,
at the end. Like, most of the stuff in the book about these characters hasn't even started.
oh wow. So
So
we
there's like
still we still
three
have
chapters that are the Dance of the Dragons, and then there's like
wow.
one chapter that is this stuff, and a lot of this also gets taken up by like the end of the previous king. Like, there's not that much stuff about this time period. They really expanded it out for this.
So okay, and then Do you want to? Okay, there's something you did last week that I was like, oh, we should try and do it again this week, where you kind of caught us up with the book, like you filled in the spots where the book. It was, how did you do it?
Because we had gotten to the point when Laenor was written out, right? I
Oh
explained
yeah.
like how it was different in the book.
Oh,
Right?
the holes, yeah, that hole,
Yeah.
that plot hole.
This was relatively close to the book,
Okay.
except that I believe it's actually oh my god, Vaemon and his sons that are killed, and they get their tongues ripped out or something. Both of these things sort of happen in the book. Like, I mean, the Aemon's speech about the strong bastards is like one of the big standout moments of sort of the prequel to part of to Dance of the Dragons. So it's, they really did adapt. A lot of people have been waiting for this sort of scene for a long time. So I think so far this was a pretty close adaptation but although it doesn't happen like literally right before he dies, like they compressed the timeline.
Okay.
But the core of this is basically the same as it is in the book.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like we should do that every week.
I'm happy to do it.
Catch us up or fill up any plot holes. Yeah, because the thing you did with what's his name, Laenor, I thought that was super interesting. Again,
that is the biggest change so far.
I was so happy they shaved his head. They did. Listen, all the black. Go ahead.
The wigs are just so terrible in this episode.
Yes,
just so bad.
I was waiting. I'm like, when is he gonna say it? Like, I was waiting.
I'm sorry. Like those poor twins. Oh my god, the wigs. They're just so bad.
They get it the worst. They get it the worst.
They get the worst. Like all the black characters show get it the worst when it comes to like
wigs, hair.
The wigs. But so do the Targaryens. Like when I was watching my wife and I was like, we were watching the recap. I was like, bad wig, bad wig, bad wig. Like just as they were, I was like, damn.
I'm like I said, Viserys is the only one whose wig I'm not bothered by, because his wig is a progression of his character. Like literally, his wig starts off damn near perfect in episode 1, and by the end of that episode, his hair is everywhere. Episode 2, his hair is everywhere. Like every time he breathes for a second, something happens, and then you could just look at his hair and be like, "Yep, I feel you. I totally get it." So that's the only person whose hair I haven't really minded. But you're right. This was a horrible episode for wigs. I feel like that's going to be the theme until season 2, and we'll find out.
Hopefully they put some of that budget towards wig technology.
Because listen, I'm tired.
I don't remember the wigs being this bad in Game of Thrones. Were they this bad?
Maybe they were. Maybe. When was the last time you did a rewatch?
I will never do a rewatch again. So.
So you would never know.
I will never know. I will not traumatize myself again.
Right. So let me see. Did we miss anything?
I think we talked about everything. I guess the most controversial thing is going to be our ratings, because my rating is well, go ahead, Mo.
I'll go first. I am thinking this is one of the better Game of Thrones episodes in a while. It's, to me, like there were flaws, but this is one of the better Game of Thrones episodes in a while. I'm counting from season 5. This is a stand. Like you put this up against any episode from 6, 7, and 8. This episode clears those 3 seasons. So I am going to give this one a strong A.
I want to give this a strong A. I just so disliked the last, not even the last 30 seconds. That out that they gave, that last conversation between Alicent and Viserys. There we go. Like, just ruined a lot of the to me characterization.
That's a Marco.
Of her. So I would give it a B+ A-.
Okay,
I think it is
fair.
It's not as strong to me as the last episode. Like the last episode, I was literally on the seat of like my chair during that confrontation between Alicent and Rhaenyra, right? Okay. Like, and there were a couple moments like that in this episode for me. Actually, it was the queen dealing with her son being a sexual predator,
Mhm.
But like
Listen.
that was intense, right?
Mhm.
But that intensity didn't go through the whole episode for me. But there were some real highs. But I felt that there's such a that they copped out of the story that they were telling,
Mhm.
which is like Allison being boxed in, like which I've come over and over again as like to me felt like her character's arc in this show. And then the fact that they now gave her this like, okay, yeah, my dad and my son are boxing me in to make this decision, but now I also can go to sleep saying the last thing that Viserys said to me was Aegon. I thought it was that Aegon should be king. I think it just feels too like gives the character
Easy
an
way
easy
out.
out.
Right.
To like what's going to be a big momentous decision for her that felt like a natural progression.
Mhm. But yeah, I don't disagree. Again, after going like starting where we started and coming, full circle, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you on that last episode, but I don't think in that last moment. But I personally don't think it's that it's an out. But I don't think it takes that much away from the episode. It probably would detract from the next because then the payout is what. But I think the episode in itself, just contained, was fantastic. Um, Especially again, this is the first. This the last two episodes were the first time I was scared of Allison. Like what a mother would do. Like again, from what we know about Game of Thrones, what a mother would do to protect her son. It's listen, especially a mother in King's Landing. We know, right? So
Yeah.
I was terrified. But yeah, you still gave it a high B. So
Yeah,
B plus A minus.
the
So
internet says this is the best episode of the show, which I don't think it is.
right, and it's funny because I sent you a article or whatever. IMDb out of 100 and some reviews had a 10 out of 10, which was amazing. I thought it was pretty high. I don't know about 10 out of 10. A strong A is not necessarily 10 out of 10. So you're the teacher.
Numbers are all made up.
Right.
Grades are fake.
But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode and I can't wait for next week. And I am excited to come back and do this again next week. This week, however, we have 2 season finales and right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because Rings of Power is this week, right?
She-Hulk, Rings of Power are this week.
And Endor is ending one of its storylines this week. So
right. So that's going to be interesting. And I get to see Black Adam sometime this week. So I happy for you. Yeah. I tried tickets for Silver Spring, but I couldn't because they are showing in Silver Spring, but that was sold out.
I can only imagine. Well,
yeah, everyone wants to see The Rock.
Do you see my heart? My heart's breaking.
I see your it's bleeding. I'm sorry.
Just I'm just so sad.
I didn't mean to stab you in the back.
I know, Mo. I'm just so angry. Like,
right.
I just can't handle myself.
Right. So,
but how will I know how the DC power structure is changing?
Oh yeah, because that's oh my God, Dwayne! Like if you say that one more time,
Mo.
Oh my God!
Yes, you'll have to tell me whether or not the power structure of the DC universe is going to change.
Oh man. My God, Dwayne!
That movie's going to make money. Like
it's gonna make bread.
So I'm excited to see. I will be watching your review. I hope you give me the full spoiler version. So
nah, I can't do that. I can't do that.
Read it on the internet, like, and hearing it from my friend Mo is much more entertaining than reading it on Reddit. Let me tell you.
No, I think maybe when we're doing Andor, I could talk about it after the post show. Anyways, don't forget to. So you see that like button, that share button, Dracarys. Hit that and come back next week. Yeah, hit the bell.
Remember we said this last time, but because the Vagar stealing was last episode, right? We said
yes.
Valar Dohaeris, all men must serve by clicking the like and subscribe button. All right, or you'll Valar Margulis this channel.
Right. So thank you very much, everyone that watched and participated. We will catch you next week. Peace out.